Welcome back. I am your host, Mr. Noir, and this is our third episode. And today we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. What does it mean to you, how it's affecting our entire age group, and what we're planning on doing next. So let's jump in. I use ChatGPT and artificial intelligence all the time. I enjoy it. It's one of those things that has been resoundingly helpful to me. I have nothing bad to say about it from a daily usage perspective. However, I do see the writing on the wall. I see how people are losing their jobs. People are really kind of floundering because AI is coming so quickly that a lot of us are not able to adapt quickly enough based on what we've learned in school or our chosen career path. And all of a sudden the rug is being pulled out from under us and we find ourselves free falling in this world where we are no longer valid in terms of our capabilities. We're being outstripped, and that's a hard pill for a lot of people to take, because if you've been doing a job for 15 or 20 years and you're really good at it and you've reached a level of expertise where you're like, all right, I feel pretty good about this. And then all of a sudden, your boss comes up to you and says, Charlie, I'm going to have to let you go, or you can stay a little while longer while you're training your AI replacement. Can you imagine? And this happens every day in a lot of different industries. Bosses or companies decide, I no longer have to pay this person to be here when I can just hire somebody who doesn't sleep, can work all night, and doesn't cost me nearly as much. They're going to take that right away. You are a detriment to them at this point. So for me, I'm a presentation designer. I do high-end presentations. I've mentioned this before in the other episode. And I recognize my diminishing value in my industry. And it's no fault of my own. It's just that PowerPoint and Keynote are now integrating with artificial intelligence. And what happened is we as designers are being pushed out by an inferior product. It's not that it can't do the design and it looks good, but there's obviously no soul to it. But the parts that are missing, the client is no longer looking for perfection. They're looking for acceptable, or, well, that does work. It's not exactly what I was hoping to get, but it's fine. And that is what's going to get us. The it's fine mentality where you just can't compete. You can't compete in speed or quality. The only thing you can do is make bespoke presentations or change your entire career path to something more human-centric, where you're able to talk to your client, shake their hand, get to know them, and really understand what they're looking for so that you, as another human, can deliver what they're asking for. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's one of those situations where we grew up in a time where technology was remedial at best. We were born just as video games were coming out. Remember Pong? You remember CDs? They came after cassette tapes, which we were also around for. And there's just microwaves. I mean, I could go on and on with the things that have come to fruition in our lifetimes. And now we're on the cusp of robots and flying cars. Can you imagine telling your 10-year-old self, by the time you get to be 50 and a grown-up, we will have robots in a flying car in our driveway? I wouldn't have believed that ever. Or I would have believed it and just hoped to dear God I was still alive for it. And now here we are. And so from my standpoint, I understand that I can't compete. I can't go faster than AI can. The only thing that I've got working to my advantage is my creativity, my human nature, my ability to talk to others in a relatable way where, just as I'm talking to you right now, I can talk to anybody this way. And yes, AI is good at communicating, but they're not going to get the nuance of interacting with humans from a I'm looking at you in the eye standpoint, and I'm shaking your hand, and we can understand on an emotional level exactly what our goals are, what our desires are. And so it leads me back to the question of what are you planning on doing in this crazy time we're living in? It's fascinating if you lived on an island and you could see the rest of the world making these enormous leaps of technology and ascension of capabilities. I mean, things are going crazy right now. We've got plans to go back to the moon and then to Mars, and it's amazing that we are living through this time. But it's also a harrowing feeling because we can't do anything about it aside from adapt to the changes that we're experiencing. And unfortunately, a lot of people are not going to be able to. There's a lot of people that are, and they're taking this and they're adapting it to their own personal needs, just like me and just hopefully like you. But having the recognition that we're not really competing because we're not even going to be worthy of being considered as competition. AI is going to lap us pretty quick. Within the next couple of years, AGI is going to be here, artificial general intelligence, where it will be equal to or greater than the sum of human experience and knowledge. Now, maybe not experience. I mean, it's still a box. But now that we've started including robots that are able to touch the physical world and visualize and communicate in a very tactile way, experience will also come with that. And so a lot of people are going to think that this is going to be like the Terminator or the Matrix, and I don't think it's going to be quite that way, but I definitely think we're going through a shift in our expectations of what we're going to be able to do with our lives and what we want in our lives. I would love, and I've mentioned this before, I would love to have a homestead with 5 or 10 acres for my family where I can do this channel, talk to you guys about things that are going on in the real world and communicate in a way that is both relatable and understandable, and you guys can say, yeah, he's exactly right, or he's completely crazy, and we have that interaction. If I can provide for my family by talking to other people and entertaining and communicating in a way that feels natural and good to you guys, then what more could I ask for? I'm not trying to live in the big city anymore. I'm trying to live a relaxing lifestyle where I'm not scrounging for work or hunting for food or whatever it is. That's how it feels right now, where a superior predator is on the scene and we're scrambling to say, how are we going to feed ourselves? How are we going to live? Is there going to be some type of universal basic income that they're going to give us? I kind of doubt that. At least not without some type of, riot happening. Or are we going to get money back from our social media presence because they are milking us dry and they're customizing things that they think we like and sending it to us directly. Hey, buy this, purchase that, or take this class, or whatever it is. I mean, they're constantly trying to sell you things based on the vast amount of data they have on you. And it's convenient. It's a very Minority Report feel, but it doesn't feel good from a holistic human nature kind of way where everything is curated for you and you feel like, well, I can only speak for myself. I don't want things scanning me constantly, internally or externally. I like my privacy just as any normal person would, and I don't want to be scrutinized and examined so that they can make more money off of my decisions. If they were willing to give me, I don't know, I don't know what my opinions are worth at this moment, but let's just say $1,000 a year. Here's $1,000 back to you because we're using your information and your likes and your dislikes and every possible permutation of who you are to better market towards you or sell you things or do things for you that we can make money off of. That, I understand what that is, but I kind of want some recompense from that invasion of my privacy. And I can't imagine that anybody else in their right mind would say, no, I'm fine with it. They can just keep milking my data points perpetuity. And I'm like, no, not me. I think that we should get something back for it. And I think that the world that we're living in now is really focused on the wealthy. And I don't have anything against the wealthy. I would personally like to be wealthy. Not obscenely wealthy. I don't need $1 billion. But if I had 5 or 10 million, I'd be tight. I just don't ever want to have to think about bills anymore. I don't want to think about how much this is going to cost me from month to month. Or, boy, I wish I could afford that house or car or whatever it is. I don't want to worry about the minutia of poor people ideas. And unfortunately, without adaptation, we're kind of in a position where our lives are being controlled by larger forces. I mean, if just a couple people have the capacity to increase gas prices or take away solar power or just make the world a less equitable place, that's what I want. I don't want those few to have power over us, the many. And so one of the things that I'm doing in terms of adaptation is I'm starting to become more human-centric across the board in my entire life. I used to be one of those people that would write with a fountain pen, and I'd customize my own ink into a Moleskin journal, and I would write for hours in cursive. And if you look at your kids today, they don't teach cursive anymore. They don't show the nuance of writing a check or knowing how finances work in the real world. And we've lost some nuance of old school humanity, where I want to be a gentleman for the remainder of my life. I always want to be able to be considerate, to think of others. And I know that karmically it's going to come back to me, but AI is kind of stripping that away. Well, not just AI, technology at large is kind of stripping those nuanced characteristics that we've become so used to in our younger lives. I mean, like I said, I used to love writing by hand and sending letters to people. When was the last time you received a handwritten letter from somebody? I can tell you it's been actually it was fairly recent. I got a greeting card from my sister, and we, being these older people, we still believe in the value of conveying our time and the meaning of human interaction. You should see how I'm pausing in between these statements because I want to make sure that I'm saying exactly what's on my mind. But these are dying traits, and I personally still read a vast amount every single day. I read the news, I read magazines, I read everything I can get my hands on. I enjoy a documentary too, but I try to keep abreast of everything going on so that when somebody asks me a question, I can have at least a semblance of a cohesive response. My goal is to be not an idiot and to continuously improve myself. I'm learning Spanish right now. Now, to be fair, I've been married to a Puerto Rican for 30 years. I should speak it fluently. But to be honest, we don't really speak Spanish in this house. But she understands it and she speaks it fluently, and I would love to be able to speak to her in her native tongue. And a lot of people don't think that way anymore. They think, if you don't know English, that's not my problem. I'm not going to waste my time with you. Or, conversely, they'll say, talk into my phone, it'll translate for me, so I don't have to think about it, and then I will talk back into my phone and give it back to you, the response that I'm hoping is accurate. But again, you lose a lot of human to human interaction and nuance where you can look at somebody and go, yeah, you know what I'm saying. Where you wouldn't be able to do that into a device or outside of talking to somebody in person. It's just a lost talent. And heaven forbid somebody tells a 25-year-old to call somebody else on the telephone when all they've known for the past 10 years is how to text. I talk to my kids all the time about that. I'm like, just call them up. No, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Why? We talk to people all the time. You guys have customer service jobs. You're used to talking to people. And then they give me some hinky answer like, it's so much easier just to text. But you miss a lot when you're just texting. Like, you can call somebody stupid in 6 different ways. But if you text it, it only means you're stupid. But if you could change it up if you were really talking to somebody, man, you are so stupid, oh my God. And it means something entirely different. And that's what's lost now, the nuance. And I know I keep saying nuance, but it's so important to where we're going now and how we're going to grow as a culture in the future. Someday it may be like the Jetsons. Someday it may be like the Matrix. Someday it may even be like iRobot or Bicentennial Man. There's a lot of different movies that we can refer to where you get both good results from robotics or artificial intelligence, and of course there's plenty that are bad. But for me, having the old school traits or really going back to a more simple, honest, genuine time where you can talk to another person and say, you know, I'm so glad you invited me over. I brought you some wine. Let's talk things out. Let's have a good time tonight. And it feels really good to cultivate those friendships and relationships. And we're really kind of losing that because nobody wants to leave the house. Nobody wants to cultivate friendships like we used to. It used to be so much simpler and so much richer than what we have right now. And I'm not afraid of AI or technology, but I do recognize that it's taking away the subtle feelings that we used to share with one another. And it's a lot more coarse. And I don't like that. I like having the relationships and the nuance, and it's important to me to be able to convey to you in a very human-centric kind of way what I'm feeling, where I think we're going, and ask you point blank, what are you about to do next? Is your career safe? Are you adapting, or are you going to change tack altogether and reroute? Because I know that I have to reroute. My career is kind of ending, and I understand that. I'm aware that competition isn't something that I can do effectively because, first off, it's moving incredibly fast. And the adaptations and evolution of technology is putting me in a position where it's exhausting to even try to keep track of it. I'll reap the benefits of it when a new level of intelligence arrives, or I'll be a slave to it. I mean, who's to say? That's not the goal here. But I really want to ask you, how are you dealing with artificial intelligence? Is it something you welcome? Is it something you shun? And what are you going to do next? I'm turning to you guys. I'm doing this show. I'm talking as honestly and emotionally rich as I possibly can. I mean, hell, the first couple episodes I was trying not to cry. This one is not like that at all. This is a more serious, urgent puzzle that we have to solve. An entirely new species has come into our existence. We never had anything like this. And we see the incredible trajectory it's on in terms of growth and ability. And the people in power are trying to make it as beneficial for themselves first as they possibly can. And we, their market, are seeing the benefits, and a lot of us, if you've ever checked LinkedIn, are seeing the detriments of this newly advanced technology. They're not doing well. They find it extremely difficult to get their names out, get a response. I used to be a recruiter for Robert Half, and that was very easy because somebody would apply, you'd see their application, you'd call them back and say, hey, I see you applied, let me talk to you and find out what your qualifications are. But now humans are being completely phased out of the process, and it's hurting the people that are looking for jobs because unless you apply in exactly the right way, and unless you're saying the right phrases, or heaven forbid, they're recording your interview and assessing your facial expressions or the answers that you're giving in a very clinical, robotic kind of way, you might not ever get another job because their threshold for quality and perfection is so high that you simply can't give them exactly what they're asking for. If you were talking to a human, they would see your character, they'd see your ability, they'd know your experience because you're conveying it directly to them. But like I said, the people on LinkedIn, they are fit to be tied. They are not happy with the staffing culture right now. And I've got a bunch of staffing friends where I could theoretically call them up and say, hey, I know that my field of interest is not easy to come by, even when it was good. Presentation design was a very tricky kind of field to get into because most companies don't see the need to have a perpetual presentation designer on staff. They usually only use us for large events or some type of internal design that's going to go out to the entire company for like templates and styles and things like that. And it's tricky. It's been tricky. And I work very hard to be the right candidate for my clients if I'm doing it through a staffing agency. But the other fields of interest, project managers, all the different types of companies are pushing their human people out, and they're scared. The people are scared. The companies jump blindly into the faith that AI is going to take care of all of their problems. It's going to cut their margins, and they're just going to be thrilled with the results, negating the human interaction because they think that people will adapt to the services we're offering, and it's too fast. It's simply too fast. They can't do it. So that is the gist of my show. What are you going to do now that AI is here and it's encroaching on people's careers? I mean, you can be an investor, but only if you have money to invest. And it's a race that we are not going to win unless we turn back to a more human-centric society. It should be very much for humans by humans. And we might have different areas on Earth or in this country at a lesser extent where technology will be shunned and you won't be able to use technology in the way that you might in the rest of the world. You ever see a movie called, not Symbiotes, but it's a Bruce Willis movie where everybody was able to get into an artificial human while their soul stayed at home, and they mentally projected their mental life onto their symbiotes. And so it might come to that, where there's pockets of society that no technology is allowed, where only regular cars exist, nothing with a computer inside, and no phones for sure. And people live a lifestyle not unlike the Amish, but from a technologically stifled or technologically remedial way, where they're like, we accept that we're losing technology here. That's totally fine. What we're looking for are writers, artists, people that are more blue collar, but from a human to human perspective. And we're not interested in the electronic life that you guys are leading. There's going to be some type of culling where people are like, I'm out. This is too much. You've gone too far. And to be quite honest, I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people that are like, if we could roll things back to the 1950s, without the racism and stupidity, I would love that, because people dressed well, they spoke well, they communicated in a way that was still very classic. People read prolifically. They read and they wrote by hand all the time. And they worked with their hands and they gave back to their communities. I can't imagine a situation where that doesn't make quality of life sense, where you can get a good home-cooked meal. Now, there's a limit to this. If you need some cutting-edge medical help, leave your little 1950s town and go get some real help from a real scientist and a doctor who can maybe use some CRISPR on you to fix all your problems. But aside from that, it's one of those situations where I personally would like to live in a time or in a place where people can look at each other eye to eye, shake a hand, do something nice for one another. Maybe it's not so economically centered, where you don't feel like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul just to have a normal life. I want to be able to go to my backyard, kill a chicken, pluck it, and eat it without paying a good God amount of money for eggs or meat or whatever. Or if I'm not looking into having a farm that has cattle or livestock, and I can just grow my own vegetables, as you know, I'm going vegetarian, that's perfectly fine by me. I don't need meat, come to find out. I'm sad about it, but I would much prefer to have a very simple life than one like the one we're currently going into right now. It's going to be progressively harder for us on the daily basis to just live a quality life. And that's more valuable than technology to me. I hope it is for you as well. Do me a favor, leave a comment, subscribe, obviously, and come back and let me know what you thought of this episode, because I would love to hear what your plans are going forward with technology nipping at our heels. You can use technology, obviously. I'm not telling you not to, but from a life quality standpoint, getting back to basics seems like the better long-term engagement as a normal human, not competing with artificial intelligence. All right, so thank you so much for stopping by yet again. I went a little bit over. I'm going to try to edit this down to a more cohesive 20 minutes. Thank you for your visit. I appreciate it. I love talking to you guys, and I love these little moments of honesty and asking your opinions about what's going to happen next. What do you think about something? And we'll talk soon. Thanks again. Bye.